What would it take for you to take home a six-figure paycheck from your business? Like, what does your revenue need to look like? How many clients would you need? What does that business structure even look like? In this video, I'm going to walk you through how to figure out the answer to that question so that you have a clear picture of how many clients you need and what your revenue target needs to be in order to make that goal of a six-figure CEO paycheck a reality. So I'm really big on planning, as you probably know if you've listened to any of my other episodes. And we're just coming off in the High Profit Society of our Q2 2025 quarterly planning day, where we sit down and map out what we're going to do over the next quarter. What I thought was really amazing this quarter is that everybody who was there live had done multiple planning days with me before. And then I also had a couple other people who messaged me separately who couldn't come live. Everyone that came live, and then a couple other people messaged me saying they met or exceeded their revenue target for Q1, which I thought was amazing because, and this is what I said to them, hitting that target does not happen on accident. It's not luck. It happens because you sit down and do the work. You map out a plan, you figure out what you need to do in order to make it a reality, and you do the work week in and week out. And they all did that, and they all had the results to show for it. So instead of sitting here trying to wing it, what I want us to do in this video is map out what would it take for me to be able to take home $100,000 or more from my business. Actually, just the same day, same outfit and everything, I just recorded some videos to go with my $1 Million Wealth Map guide, which is my step-by-step sort of overview of how you go from where you are now to building seven figures in wealth as a business owner. And I said this in one of those videos. I'm going to say it here because it's top of mind and related to this episode. If we are going to put the amount of work that we put into building our businesses, the amount of time, the amount of energy, why would we not structure it so that we can take home at least $100,000 or more from the business? Because realistically, unless you are designing a lifestyle business that you only work in a few hours a week and maybe it's more passive, which is probably not most of you listening to this episode or this video right now, why would we not want to? Because I think that most of us could go out and pretty quickly go find a job that pays us at least 50 to 60K a year, if not upwards of six figures. And, we may lose some control of our time, but we don't have the same amount of pressure in most jobs that you have as a business owner. And so if we're going to put this energy into our businesses, like, why would we not structure it to take this amount of money home? I think that there's a lot of self-doubt that comes up around worthiness, which is why the episode a couple weeks ago was about mindset around under-earning, because I think that there's a lot of that mindset stuff that comes up. But just zooming out, I really think that doing this, taking home six figures in pay from your business is absolutely possible, and it's probably not as hard as you think it's going to be. That's not to say that it's going to be easy, but I think that with the right plan in place and by getting clear on exactly what you need to do and how to structure your business in a way that makes it simpler to hit that goal, it is within everybody's reach. So step number one to figuring this out is going to be to understand, where is your business right now? What's your revenue, preferably revenue by offer, which I talked about in episode 169, I believe. We can link it here. But figuring out where your money comes from and how much you're making from each offer is one thing that I think is really important to understand. And then I'm also really interested in the breakdown of how much of your revenue goes to cover overhead expenses and then how much you're able to take out as pay and profit. It would be like trying to figure out how to go from where you are now to where you want to go without knowing your starting point would be like trying to drive to New York City and you pull out a map and you're like, well, I know where New York City is. I know where I want to go, but I'm not completely sure where I'm at on this map. I think I'm somewhere in the southeast, maybe around the state of North Carolina, but I don't know exactly where I am. And so you're going to be driving around in circles, just trying to guess at the first few steps that you need to take in order to drive all the way to New York City. It's the same thing. And so we need to sit down and understand where we are now. I think that this is a conversation that I have with clients a lot, is that looking at this data, we have to learn to detach from what the data means. Like, these are just numbers. They're pixels on a screen that you're looking at. They do not mean anything about you in terms of your intelligence, your worth, your ability to do any of these things, right? But we need to know the data so that we know how to fix it, how to improve it. So that's step one, is understanding where you are right now. Step two is to calculate your revenue target. Now you can calculate a revenue target bottom up or top down. I'm going to talk you through bottom up, meaning we're going to start with the end goal in mind of I want to pay myself a 6-figure paycheck. What does that take? Some people will do top down, meaning they like to set just a really big revenue target and that's what they work toward. I personally like to do a blend of both. So I like to do a combination and say, you know what, I have this big long-term vision for what I want from my life and for my money and for my business. And that's what I'm taking steps toward. That's the identity that I'm working toward. This is where I want to go. And then in terms of setting the goal for the upcoming quarter, I like to do the bottom-up approach and saying, what would it take for me to take a step toward that? What are the next 3 to 5 steps that I need to take toward being that person? I have those clearly mapped out. I may not know steps 6 through 1,000, but I do at least know the next 3 to 5. So what does that look like? And then doing the bottom-up approach around that to know what your revenue goal is going to be. Sometimes we do this and we'll set a revenue target and it ends up being not that different than what we've done in previous quarters. And so in this case, this is where I say it's like a puzzle. You can always increase it. You can always try to stretch yourself a little bit, but we need to know at least what that baseline is. What is the amount that we need in order to pay all the bills in order to pay ourselves? So there's 2 ways that we can calculate a revenue target. An easy way would be taking your take-home pay goal. In this case, I'll use 10K as an example, and then doubling that to hit your revenue. So if you want to take home 10K, pay yourself 20K, and then we can generally allocate, $5,000 to $8,000 or so toward overhead expenses, allocate some for taxes, and then what's left is your pay and profit. I do think that rough math aligns pretty closely with what I see with a lot of clients. So as an advisor, as a CFO and CPA, I've seen a lot of businesses, and I think as long as your overhead expenses are around 30% of revenue or less, that math will generally work. But depending on your business model and depending on how much you work versus, I've seen clients who outsource more delivery sooner and then they work like 5-10 hours a week. But your expenses as a percent of revenue are probably going to be a little bit higher than that like 30 to 40% mark. So this is where I think it's really important to understand where you're at now so that we can do a better job of estimating what the target revenue needs to be. Now, if you want a more exact method, a more accurate method, this is what we do with our clients is we take the calculator, which you can actually grab a simplified version of this if you download my free sales plan and pricing tool, which is linked in the description. But if you grab that calculator, we can do the more exact math. And we start with your profit and pay goal. In this case, let's call it $10,000. If you need more buffer on top of your pay for profit to save in your business, to put into investments or things like that, obviously add that on top of your $10,000 target. But we're going to take that pay goal, the total profit and pay goal, and add a buffer for taxes on top of that. If you want to just make this math pretty simple, add a buffer probably like 30 to 35% on top of that to cover taxes. If you're using my calculator, it'll do the math for you. You can input your tax rate and it will do the exact calculation. So add a buffer for taxes because unfortunately, if you're making money in your business, you're probably going to pay taxes on that. And then after we add the buffer for taxes, then we want to add on top of that your overhead expenses. So let's say that if our pay goal is $10,000 before taxes, I'm going to use really rough math here. Let's say before tax, we need $14K in total profit and owner's pay. Then I'm going to add on top of that my overhead expenses. Let's say that they average $6,000 a month. That's going to get me to that $20K per month revenue target. Now, one caveat I like to make is let's say your current expenses are 30% of revenue right now, but you do this math and you realize that to hit your pay goal and your profit goal, your revenue is going to have to double or triple. You might want to increase your expense budget as a percentage of revenue, or at least increase it and keep the percentage consistent. Because let's say you're spending, let's say your revenue is $10,000 and you're spending 30% or $3K on overhead expenses. It's probably not accurate to assume that when you double your revenue to $20K, that your overhead is going to stay the same. Now, sometimes that can be the case by optimizing processes and business model and all this stuff, but most of the time, and especially when I do goal setting, I like to be a little bit more on the conservative side. And so I would say make sure that if your revenue is growing substantially, that you're accounting for an increase in expenses. And so by doing that math, we get to the revenue number that you're going to need in order to make all of that work. And so now you've got target revenue, a budget for expenses, and then a number that you should be able to hit for profit, pay, and taxes. Now, the third step, once we know our revenue target, is going to be to figure out how many clients do we need in order to hit that number? So this is going to be based on your current offer structure and pricing. Sometimes I'll do this exercise with clients and they use their current pricing and they realize that they're going to have way more clients than they feel like they could ever even want to handle, which is one of my arguments for building a high ticket offer in your business, because you can generally make the same amount of revenue with a lot less clients and without having to necessarily increase the time that you spend with clients as much as you would if you had a lower ticket offer. I actually did this back in 2020 when I went full-time in my business. I remember setting a goal to scale up to 10K months, and I think my average client was paying me something like $400 a month. I did the math and was like, oh, all I need is 25 clients. I can totally handle that without having to hire anybody. And if you've listened to me talk about, the evolution of my business, you probably can guess that you probably know this already. That did not work. I couldn't do it because I was trying to invest way more than $400 worth of time and energy into every one of these clients, which made it really difficult to be able to sustain that, which is then why I switched to the high ticket model. Now, I really do believe that you can get up to multi-seven figures with one really solid offer. So when we take this revenue target that we have, my best advice would be for you to listen to episode 169, figure out which of your offers is your best in terms of profitability and client results and retention, and figure out what would it take for me to get this offer up to hit my revenue goal. Rather than trying to spread yourself thin and do a whole bunch of different things, really hone in on one thing that's going to get you where you want to go. So what you have to do is figure out what is my average price for this offer that I'm going to focus on, divide that into your revenue target, and you'll figure out your goal. So let's say if your revenue target is $20,000 a month, your average client is paying you $2,000 a month. That means 20K divided by 2K is 10. You need 10 clients paying you $2,000 a month in order to hit 20K months. And that is all it takes to figure out exactly the answer to how many clients do I need in order to pay myself a six-figure paycheck. But if it was that simple to just do the math and then make it all work, everybody would be doing it and nobody would have any problems with business and you wouldn't have to be listening to this video, right? So the real question is, once you do the math, once you figure out what the model can look like, what do you do with this information? So question number one, you can ask yourself, is this achievable? Is my 10 client goal achievable? Can I deliver to that many clients? Is there anything that I need to change with my business model or with processes or with team in order to be able to serve those clients at the level that I want to? How many leads do I need to get in order to close 10 clients and to maintain them? Where are those leads going to come from? What are the marketing activities that I'm going to do in order to close those leads? And I think maybe most importantly, is there anything that you can change in the way the offer is structured so that as you scale up the number of clients you have, that you can still deliver with the quality that you would expect as you start to slot team members in? So making sure that the way you structure the offer actually gets clients the results that they want to get, that you're able to deliver, you provide clear deliverables to them, and that you can basically give a team member almost a checklist of like, here's what we're doing, and they can come and help you deliver a good chunk of that offer, if not the entire thing. All right, y'all. So your homework from this video is going to be to grab my sales plan and pricing tool if you don't already have it, get the calculator, do the math, figure out what the business model is going to look like, and specifically, what do you need to do in order to make that business model a reality? You're probably also going to want to check out my quarterly planning video where I'm going to walk you through the process for exactly how to figure out what to do next in the upcoming quarter to make this vision that you have for your business, to make this business model a reality. I also have a whole playlist on my YouTube channel around high ticket offers. So if you do this exercise and you realize you need to increase your prices in order to make the business model work, I highly recommend checking out that playlist because I've got videos all around designing the offer and creating a sales funnel in order to close clients in a high ticket offer so that it makes it easier for you to hit this business model. So that is it for this video, y'all. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you back next time.